Welcome back to the Writer's Room, the show where I walk you through the lore and writing process of my Transformers AU, Siegeworld. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the Siegeworld era, the setting of my main episodes and spotlight episodes. I started Siegeworld back in 2024, and since that first episode, I've made 4 full episodes, 10 spotlights, and even started a Records miniseries. Well, at first glance, most of these episodes may not seem connected. There are a lot of small connections that you may not have noticed. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the first 3 years of the Siegeworld timeline, and we'll be swinging around next week to finish off the timeline. We'll be looking at the story in chronological order, starting with the first half of Spotlight Valve. In the midst of the Third Great War, Valve was fighting on Biothera. He and his unit were fighting to take a Khan base, but a large artillery gun was stopping their assault. His commander ordered him and Copbot to destroy that artillery gun. They pushed through the defences, and Valve launched himself on top of the gun. While he met some resistance, he was able to slip an explosive into the cannon's barrel and blow up the gun. Valve was caught in the explosion, but Copbot managed to find him in the rubble. He was extremely damaged. Copbot grabbed him and started dragging him to safety, but the explosion had drawn Decepticon attention, and Overlord was sent to investigate. He landed in front of them, crushing Copbot's head and Valve's spark. That should have been the end. Valve held on for a moment, but spark was fading. His optics cut out. He thought he was dead. But suddenly, he was falling, tumbling through the sky, before crashing in a large desert. This was a similar experience for every other Cybertronian, all coming online in the sky and plummeting to the land below. Valve would later meet other bots and create a small town, but we'll get back to that story later. This new place where the bots had crashed had many different environments, from desert to jungle and even the ruins of ancient cities. Many bots would move to these cities, but most buildings were in disrepair, so they needed to gather materials to make repairs, and where there are valuable materials, there are bots who want to take those materials. A few spotlights take place around this time. First is Spotlight Reboost. Reboost was a courier in one of the destroyed cities. Specifically, he transported high-value items for private clients. He was renowned for his reliability, but during one job, he was delivering some sensitive materials to Brainstorm. Along his route, he was ambushed by a group of raiders, led by Fracture. Reboost was able to kill these raiders and make his way to Brainstorm for the delivery. And we'll put a pin in here, as we'll be seeing Brainstorm and Reboost in the future. Another story in these destroyed cities is Jolt. Rare materials weren't the only things of value being stolen. Many bots would be kidnapped, some as slaves, but there were some bots of higher value. In this case, combiner limbs. When the bots crashed down to this planet, they were scattered. As a result, a complete combiner was extremely rare. For bots still engaged in war, finding any bot that could combine could provide an extreme upper hand in any conflict they may have. Starscream was one of these war-obsessed bots. He controlled a tower in one of these cities, which he had transformed into his personal prison, sending his men out to track down any combiner limb they could find, raiding small towns outside the cities. Citizens from one of these towns that had been raided would seek out Jolt and his team, Airraiser and Ten. Jolt and his team would travel town to town, helping with anything from raider problems to murders to even rogue animals. When they were informed of these recent kidnappings, they knew they had to do something. Airraiser, being a combiner limb themselves, came up with a perfect plan. Airraiser would get themselves captured, allowing Jolt to track them inside and get a map of the tower. Jolt then infiltrated the tower, having Ten drop him on the roof. He'd make his way through the base, knocking out any bot he found along the way, break into Starscream's office to hack his computer and get the access codes for the cells. But this is where the plan went sideways. Starscream made his way into the office, forcing Jolt to hide in a vent. When the time was right, Jolt grabbed Starscream and pulled him into that vent, knocking him out. But when he made his way outside and began heading towards the cells, he ran into another guard, Legion. Jolt tried to knock him out, but Legion managed to get to the alarm first. With stealth out of the window, Jolt blew a hole in the floor and just dropped straight into the cells, knocking out the guards and freeing Airraiser and the prisoners. Jolt would hold off Starscream and some other guards while the prisoners escaped, but Starscream's men got the upper hand, launching Jolt through a door. Jolt landed in front of the solitary cells. These cells weren't connected to the rest of the cell block, so Jolt wasn't aware of their existence. Seeing he had no options left, Jolt broke the door panel and released whoever was inside. When the door opened, Hunger charged out. He tackled one guard to the ground, killing him, before charging towards Starscream, Jolt took this opportunity to flee. Jolt made it to the roof, but before he could get into Ten's ship to escape, Hunger was launched through the floor by Starscream. Starscream had lost an arm in the fight, but he was still a threat. He charged towards Jolt. Jolt ordered Ten to launch the ship as he was grabbed by Starscream. Starscream flew Jolt into the air, but Jolt was able to rip off one of Starscream's wings, causing him to free fall to the ground. Jolt managed to get inside the ship before they hit the ground, but Starscream wasn't as lucky. He was impaled on a spike as he hit the ground. He and the guard mauled by Hunger were the only bots to die in the whole operation. Jolt and his team took the former prisoners to the nearest town, dropped them off with the citizens, and handed the apprehended guards to Roller, the warden of a small prison. Jolt's story ends with him, Airraiser, and Ten leaving in their ship, and so far, we haven't seen them again. But they may be important in the future, and while we're here, we'll just put a pin in Roller, as we'll be seeing him in the future as well. With these cities needing constant materials, many bots made a living transporting materials from mines and quarries located far from the cities, to the cities themselves. While these long, open roads were often clear of raiders, there were still many dangers. One of these dangers was the wildlife, and this is where we see Spotlight Armorhide. Armorhide was a trucker working for Roller. He and Headlock, a small bot that turned into a forklift, were on a routine journey transporting fuel and energon from a fuel merchant back to Roller's prison. But along the journey, they ran into a swarm of drones, primitive life forms, not much of a threat alone, but in large groups, they could destroy a small town. The swarm they ran into was rather small, but still a threat. But Armorhide had a plan. He had Headlock throw him a barrel, and he threw it to the drones, firing a missile into the barrel, and blowing up a large number of the drones. He grabbed one of the dead drones out of the air, and used it to shoot down the others, saving the shipment. And we'll put a pin in Armorhide for now as well. At this time, it wasn't just cities bots settled. Many would rather create their own small town, and this is where we meet back up with Valve. He and his group had created a town that was quickly growing to be one of the most important in that region. Valve and his partner Roller had opened a courier business, but as he was preparing to make a delivery to Brainstorm, he noticed a bot he hadn't seen around town before, Red Mirage. Despite his suspicions, he left for his job, leaving on a 3-day journey to deliver Brainstorm's goods. While in transit, he'd lost communication with the town. This was normal. Something about this strange planet they'd all crashed on caused radios to malfunction, not working at long distances. All communication ran through wired connections. He expected to contact them when he arrived at Brainstorm's lab, but Brainstorm hadn't received anything from them in 3 days. He rushed back, but it was still a long journey. He made it back another 3 days later, where he found every resident of the town had been killed. But he managed to find Roller, clinging to life. But he was too late. Roller's wounds were fatal. Valve buried the dead, and left. And for now, that's where Valve's story ends, but we will be seeing him again in Valve Part 2. Communication is an important aspect for all bots, regardless of job or location. If you don't know what's happening, you can't plan accordingly. As radios aren't reliable at large distances, many towns are connected to each other through wires, but in more remote regions, wired connections are rare, so bots need to be sent out to run information from place to place. This was Razorbeast's role amongst a group of Maximals. They were in conflict with a group of Predacons, and while on a mission to run information back to the Maximal's base, Razorbeast is hunted by many Predacons. Lucky for him, the forces are scattered, and the terrain is to his advantage. So far, he's managed to escape Megatron's grasp just in the nick of time, and even luckier, when Terrorsaur was about to take him out, Rhinox found him, taking out Waspinator and Terrorsaur. Razorbeast was unconscious, so Rhinox carried him to a nearby forest for cover. Just when Rhinox thought they were in the clear, he fell into a trap laid by Black Arachnia. She lowered herself down to taunt him, but Razorbeast woke up and tackled her to the ground. After a short fight, he was able to shoot Rhinox's restraints, freeing him, and Black Arachnia fled. Razorbeast and Rhinox journeyed deeper into the jungle, but that's where Razorbeast's story ends for now. Razorbeast's story is still ongoing, so right now a lot of things are still a little vague, but as that story continues, we'll get to see all those secrets revealed. I'm very excited for where this story's going, and I can't wait for you guys to see more of it. But for now, that's all from Razorbeast. In Siegeworld's Arctic regions, there were far fewer bots. Many who crashed there vacated it fast. The harsh environments were more than most bots could handle. But with fewer people came more resources, and many daring bots ventured in, hoping to secure some rare commodities. This is where we meet Scourge. Scourge ran with a group of raiders, led by Nail. They'd stop any convoy they could find and take whatever they could carry. This went smoothly for a while, till they picked the wrong convoy. Tiger Tracks and his crew were transporting materials for their, as of now, unknown boss. They were prepared for raiders, but to cut down on damage to their goods, they'd first try to pay off Scourge's gang. This made Nail think they were transporting something extremely valuable. After all, why would they try and pay them off if it wasn't worth anything? A short fight broke out, and after the smoke settled, Scourge had lost an arm, and was quickly bleeding out. He made his way through the crates, ripping one from Tiger Track's hands, but inside, all he found was T-Cogs. T-Cogs, worthless components that every Metabot had a pile of. Defeated, he sat down next to Tiger Tracks and waited to bleed out. Anyway guys, that's all for all the episodes and part 1. For the writing process, we'll go through it episode by episode. For Valve, I wanted to do something with a Z-list character. Valve's from IDW. He's the pinnacle of Z-lister. He's in a grand total of 2 panels, and we're not even 100% sure it's him in the second one. He has pretty much no character, so he was a great blank slate. Roller was another blank slate, albeit more well known. I designed the robot mode myself, and the basic idea was from Modfan's Roller, a third party toy giving him a robot mode. For the rest of the characters, they're pretty simple. Bulkhead's based on the Prime version, and Six pretty close to that character. First Aid was based on the G1 version, and pretty much sticks to that as well. Volks is a hybrid of the G1 and animated versions, sticking to the animated personality, but having a more G1 body. The Tobots, X, Y, and Z, are mostly made from scratch. To be honest, I don't know much about Tobots. I rely on my partner for the non-Transformers robot stuff. All I know is Transformers and a little bit of GoBots. Part 1 is mostly just a lead up for Part 2, letting you get to know Valve and his motivations for Part 2. I added the flashbacks last minute. Originally they were just going to be dialogue, but I found that Part 2 had a lot of action and Part 1 had almost none, so I decided to turn that dialogue into 2 full flashback segments. And I do think it turned out pretty good. I've had a couple of questions about how Valve's story will continue, but for now, you just have to wait and see what's in the next episode. For Reboost, he hasn't had much either. Most of the character he's had has just been from the Masterpiece file. When it came to writing him, I wanted to be pretty reserved. I've got a lot of backstory for him. I don't want to go too much into it because I'll be touching on it in a future Wreckers episode. So for now, I'll just leave reserved for a pretty good reason. For Dipstick, he's pretty much just the IDW version. Fracture's pretty similar to the RID version. He was a bounty hunter for a time, but once he saw how much money Dad and Crankcase were bringing in, he joined up with them, and eventually took over the group. Dead End doesn't have much. Before Siegeworld he was a Decepticon leader, but he wasn't a very well known one, so he couldn't get many bots to fall under him, only Crankcase, until Fracture came in and took over the whole gang. His design's based off the Prime version. Crankcase has the least of everyone. He's the group sharpshooter, but to be honest I really just needed a third bot for that episode, but I may give him some story in the future, and he's based off the 2007 toy. Brainstorm's a big one, or will be. He's made a few appearances so far, and he is going to be important. Most of the pieces are on the board, so you could put them together, but we will be seeing a lot more of them in future episodes. His design's based on the IDW version, and his personality has stuck pretty close to that so far. For Spotlight Joe, I wanted to show off some unaligned bots that don't work for any faction. Even with Starscream in that episode, he hasn't left the Decepticons. Bots doing good or bad isn't tied to a faction. I think Autobots can do bad, and I think Decepticons can do good. In Siegeworld, not being a part of a faction is very common. Most bots aren't. They may identify as an Autobot or a Decepticon, but that's just based on basic beliefs. If a bot aligns with a group, they may say they support that group, that doesn't mean they fight for them. Jolt is based on the Revenge of the Fallen design, and for personality, I wanted him to be a classic optimistic good guy. He jokes around with his team, and he tries to avoid killing. That's why he uses his electro whips. So even if he's fighting multiple targets, he couldn't accidentally kill somebody. Razor's more of a pessimist compared to Jolt. They'll kill if they need to, and they have a lot less sympathy for the bots they're up against. But they'll still be the first to put themselves on the line. Their design's based off the Universe 2 and Revenge of the Fallen toys. It's the same toy, it was just released in 2 toy lines. 10's based on the IDW version, and by proxy, Groot. I didn't want him to just be a big guy, so I made him less of a fighter. He's an expert pilot, but when it comes to fighting, he'll mostly just leave that to Jolt and Airazor. Finally, Starscream and his guys. Starscream's based on the Cloud toy, and I didn't get to show it off too much, but he has a triple changer. He's mostly just my take on a generic Starscream. He didn't have anyone in his way, so he just started his own group. And if he'd kept a low profile, he would have eventually had that combiner he was still wanting. But he got too overconfident, kidnapping combiner bots and putting a target on his back, leading to his death. His soldiers do have a lot of backstory, but I do plan on going back to some of these guys in the future, so I'll be keeping them to myself for now. Armorhide hasn't had much so far. He has a lot more screen time in Wreckers Part 1, so I think we'll save him for Part 2. But for design, he is based on the 2007 toy, and Headlock's based on the RID character. Razorbeast is another one that's actively being worked on, so this is going to be a little vague just to avoid spoiling future episodes. Razorbeast is based on the IDW version, mostly the 2006 comic, but I have wanted to lean a bit more into the 2021 comic as of late. So far, he hasn't had any dialogue. His episodes have all been very action heavy, but I do plan on adding some dialogue into the next episodes, and I'm hoping to flesh out his character a lot more, along with everyone else in those episodes. With Spotlight Scourge, I wanted to get back to some more fun action. A lot of episodes have a ton of story, and not that much action, so I had to flip it this time. From start to end, there's a lot of heavy animation. I think I found a good in-between this time. The story's still there, but you just have to look a bit deeper to find it. And we still have some mystery in it, like who Tiger Trax is transporting the T-Cogs for. That is going to be important for the future. Scourge, Oiler, and Tiger Trax are based on the G1 versions. Car Carrier is based on the Micromaster Car Carrier, I just gave that robot mode. Nail's based off the IDW Nail Protester. Broadside's based on an Armada Minicon. And Shadow Striker's based on a Revenge of the Fallen toy. And that's the writing process. Here's the current timeline. We're around halfway through the Siegeworld story so far. Anyway guys, that's it for this one. I will be doing part 2 soon, but other than that, make sure you check in next Friday for Showcase Ultra V.